we're all ready to get started? Let's go ahead and begin. I went on a trip to Pennsylvania for a scholarship thing with a bunch of high schoolers, and as you can imagine, as a speech and debate competitor, I got into lots of controversial conversations with all the kids on my trip. And one of the conversations that I had was with my roommate. Her name was Lisa, and she said, I heard her over telling someone that she does go to church, but she doesn't consider herself religious. And so I asked her, why did she do that? And she said, well, she really just thinks that religion is a false hope, but every time her family is going through something tough, they like to go to church because it makes them feel good about themselves and it makes them feel like there's hope. But she doesn't really think that there is. And I think that's sadly, a very prominent view in society, that hope can only come in ourselves and that religion is just a tool that is used to manipulate us. And that's honestly a very similar theme that we see within the movie Dune that came out in 2021. Now, I absolutely love this movie and the sequel, so I would encourage you guys to go watch it if you like sci-fi fantasy. And I'm going to do my best to explain it in a very condensed version because it's very complex. So basically it follows. The main character is Paul Atreides, and he is the son of the Duke of Atreides. And his mother is one of what they call the Bene Gesserits, who are this group, this holy sect. And basically their goal is to give birth to this prophesied Messiah. And they think that Paul is this Messiah. So he has visions of war and famine and disaster, and it really scares him. So then the emperor tells them that they need to go take over this other planet called Arrakis, but it's basically a setup, because as soon as they take that planet over, they're absolutely slaughtered. The only people who escape are Paul and his mother. So they go and find the people of Arrakis, who are called the Fremen, in this desert landscape, and basically Paul is supposed to be this Messiah figure to the Fremen. But he believes that his mother and the Bene Gesserits are just using this idea of a Messiah as basically just a way to control the people. And so at the end of this movie, he basically decides that he's going to help the Fremen and the people of Arrakis fight against the Emperor and the evil people who slaughtered his family. But he's not really sure if he's going to embrace this idea of him being the Messiah, because he just thinks it's made up to control people. And I think that honestly, we can relate to this idea a little bit, because if you look at history, even with Christianity, things like the Crusades, or the way that the Church of England really abused the fact that citizens couldn't read the Bible until the Bible was translated in a language that they could understand. We do see in history, pretty much every religion at some point in time has been used to control people. And so that's where society gets that idea of, well, just because religion is abused, that means it's not a real hope, that it's just a tool to control people. For example, Karl Marx, who was the founder of Marxism, he once said that religion is the opium of the people. And that's another very prominent belief in society, that while religion is important for controlling people and giving them a false hope, it's really just like a drug. It's like an opium. And that's really what this movie Dune is struggling with. And in fact, something very interesting is the author of the original book series, Frank Herbert, wrote this whole series and intended for this story to be an attack on Christianity specifically. Listen to what he said. Quote, all men must see that the teaching of religion by rules and rote is largely a hoax. Religion turns our desire for hope into a weapon of control, end quote. That is amazing that we actually know the true intent behind those movies and those books. And so it begs the question of, is religion really a false hope? We can certainly agree that religion, including Christianity, has been used as a tool to manipulate people. But just because Christians are fallible doesn't mean that our religion is fallible. So what I want you to remember from this conversation at the end of the day is that if we really want to have hope, if we really want a Messiah like Paul Atreides in our life, there is someone like that, and his name is Jesus Christ, and I'm a Christian, and I do believe that the answers to every problem we face can be found within the pages of the Bible. And it just tells us the simple story of who we are and who God is, and how at the beginning of time, we wanted to be our own savior. We wanted to be in control of our own life, so we rebelled against God and we sinned against him. We rebelled against his moral law. And God had every right to abandon us, but he knew that happiness apart from himself does not exist. And so the crux of Christianity, and what makes it so unique from any other religion of the world, is that it teaches that despite that God is a God of justice, he's also a God of mercy. And he sent his own son to be that savior for us, to live a perfect life in our place, die on a Roman cross for the wrong things that we've done, and then resurrect himself 3 days later, conquering death, so that any who believe in him can have hope of an everlasting life. And if you're not a Christian here today, this truth should change everything about the way that you think and act and the choices that you make and the way that you view the world. Because unlike what Frank Herbert is trying to tell us in these books and these movies of doom, religion, while it can be used for bad, that doesn't mean that it's inherently a false hope. In fact, it's our only hope. Because if we actually want to have hope in times of tribulation and trial, looking to ourselves isn't ultimately going to help us at all, because ultimately we will all die one day. The only hope is that Christ has conquered all of our problems when he died on the cross. And if you are a Christian, our hope is what it says in Hebrews 10:23. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. Just because Christians and religion can be fallible does not mean that Christianity and the gospel and the story of Christ is fallible. It's not a false hope. It's our only hope. Thank you.